If you had the choice, do I have an extra hour in bed today, or do I go and get up early and do my exercise? Actually, I would recommend you have an extra hour today sleeping, because that means your body is restoring and repairing and is going to be ready for that sleep. The only thing that's more important than sleep is breathing.
Welcome to a whole new episode of Tell Me Why, which is a Gulf News original podcast. This is Maria, and on our show, we discuss everything that concerns or may be of interest to our listeners. For those of you who have heard us before, you probably know that we like to engage our listeners into each episode, and we've done that today, luckily. Today, I'm joined in the studio joined by Julie Mallon, who is the founder of Nurture to Sleep and a sleep consultant.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So as I mentioned, we ask our guests a unique Tell Me Why question. Now, my question for you today is, tell me why people are still finding it very difficult to fall asleep or to get a good night's sleep. And I feel like not only are they still finding it difficult, but more and more people are complaining about sleep. Can you tell me why? Like, what are some of the factors that affect our sleep?
So there's a huge raft of reasons that we're not getting enough sleep, from, our lifestyle, which is a really major one, whether it's from technology, whether it's from the fact that we live in a world now which is so dark starved. So the lighting, everywhere we look, there's lighting. And that has a huge impact on our sleep. I think we are definitely living in a more stressful world than ever before. And one of the biggest reasons is the fact that we feel we have to be available 24 hours a day. So we are always on.
Right.
If we're looking at WhatsApp, for example, WhatsApp, it's incredible, and yet there's no escaping of it. I mean, it's an absolute curse at times in terms of rest. And then, where we are in different stages of our career, it can be that families who have children, for example, they are not available until 9 o'clock. So then once the children are asleep, they've had something to eat, now they start to pick up the work. So it's very, very difficult. There's so many reasons why. Yeah.
You mentioned WhatsApp, and I find that interesting because that's like probably the last thing you look at and the first thing you look at when you wake up. So the last thing you look at while you're in bed, getting in those last few messages, all the people that you weren't able to respond to. And so many people think you're on demand. Like, that's what... It gives you anxiety that you can't respond right then and there because you're busy, but at the same time, you feel like, there's something, there's a task you need to do, and you end up doing it while you're in bed,
We all have a choice, and that choice is the phone does not come into the bedroom. And it will be hard at the beginning, but that is a choice that we all make. And nobody tells us to bring it into the room. So that will be one of your biggest hacks for a better night's sleep.
And is it because of the lighting of the phone? Like, does that light wake you up? What is it?
Again, there's many reasons. Very rarely, no matter what question we're asking around sleep and wellness, there's usually a number of components. But certainly when we're looking at sleep and our devices, the devices have a huge impact on our sleep. One, because of not just the content. So content's really important. So if you've got something that you're reading right before you go to sleep and it's leaving you with a problem, if you're already sleep deprived and anxious, that problem is not going to go away whilst you are trying to sleep.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. So the actual content. The second thing is, whilst you are looking at your device, even if you've got the blue light funnels on and you've got blue blocking lights and you've got all of these things, it still doesn't really take the light away. Right. And then that really suppresses and disrupts that really important sleep hormone, which is called the melatonin. And it disrupts it all night. So it doesn't just disrupt at the beginning of the night, it also disrupts it all night.
All throughout.
So that's why.
Just before we dive into, the specifics, can you tell me how many hours should an adult get in a night's sleep?
So there's three parts to that question.
Okay.
And what we often read is that we should be getting 8 hours sleep a night.
Exactly.
Now that can't be right.
Oh.
Because as human beings, as adults, we sleep in 90-minute sleep cycles.
Okay.
Now, within that 90-minute sleep cycle, there are different phases. So we have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and then our rapid eye movement.
Right.
And that all constitutes to approximately 90 minutes. Now, age has an impact as well. So, for example, for our small children, from 12 weeks, because that's when their melatonin is for the very first time secreted in their blood system.
Oh.
So, I mean, I think it's really fascinating. When babies are first born, they arrive with a 25-hour sleep cycle, not 24 hours. And I know.
How does that work?
That's very much from an evolutionary perspective.
Oh, wow.
Very
See,
much.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, if you think of new parents, if they knew that information, it would really help them understand the interaction of their child, their newborn sleep.
Of course.
So that's with our newborns. And newborns up until 12 weeks, they have none of this incredible hormone. They don't have any melatonin at all.
Okay.
So they work on 24 hours. There's no 12 hours day and 12 hours night. Now, from approximately 6 months, their sleep cycle is 1 hour. As opposed to ours, which is an hour and a half.
Okay.
So that's why, going back to adults and how much should we sleep for, because it's a 90-minute sleep cycle, we are either a 7-hour sleeper or a 9-hour sleeper. So that really depends when you wake up in the morning. If you're waking up in the morning and you need an alarm, if you wake up and you are feeling really tired and as if you've not slept at all,
exactly,
then the chances are you might be having too little sleep, which is your 7 hours. So therefore, you may be that 9-hour sleeper.
Okay.
It's also not just about the hours that we sleep. It is so much about the quality that we sleep.
Yes.
And often, we see really high-powered execs, members in the government, and, they will say, I just cannot sleep 7 hours. I haven't got time to sleep 7 hours. And again, what you can do, we're looking at the quality of sleep, and the minimum for a healthy brain and a healthy body, the minimum amount of sleep that we can get is 6.5 hours.
That's the minimum.
The minimum, but it's that's 6.5 hours of quality sleep. And what is going to enable us to have that quality sleep, interestingly, it's not when we go to bed at night, but it's having a consistent wake up in the morning. So even at the weekend, for example, if you are someone who says, I can't afford to sleep 7 hours, my business is just, my work at the minute isn't, then you have to be prepared. And that's the thing, you have to be prepared to be consistent. And even at the weekend, you're still getting up at your 6:30 time that you're getting up at, or whatever time it is. We talk about the 3 pillars of health, and, some people talk about the 5 pillars of health, but the 3 pillars of health are nutrition, exercise, and sleep.
Right.
But actually, without sleep, there's very little point in, we put all this wonderful food in our body and then we give ourselves junk sleep. So we don't give ourselves junk food, but we do junk sleep. And that's not going, without having good sleep, we're not going to be able to absorb the nutrients from the food that we are taking. If we're not getting enough sleep, then we are much more likely to, to have injuries. The body isn't restoring and repairing. So without sleep, if you had the choice, do I have an extra hour in bed today, or do I go and get up early and do my exercise? Actually, I would recommend you have an extra hour today sleeping, because that means your body is restoring and repairing. The only thing that's more important than sleep is breathing. That's it. There is nothing else. Nothing else.
So that actually says that we need it to survive. Can too much sleep be harmful as well?
Yes, it can actually. We know that too much sleep is linked to obesity. And generally, we're spending too much time laying down, so we're not active and we're not moving.
Yes.
But also, you've got to be looking at why we're sleeping so well, or so long rather. Could it be that the quality of our sleep is very poor? Like if we have sleep apnea, if somebody has sleep apnea, they will sleep maybe 10 hours a night and get up and feel like they've just had 3.
Exactly.
So they might be getting all the hours they sleep, but the quality is really poor. So we also want to recognize, are we sleeping more because there is a low level of mood? Is there an element of depression that we need to recognize? So we can absolutely get too much sleep. Okay.
I am a very light sleeper. I have had issues with sleeping ever since I was a child, and I think my mom is the same. And, every time someone sees me, they're like, oh, it's genetic. Like with my family, your mom has it. That's why you have it. I used to have such a tough time falling asleep. I still do, but a bit better than before, to the point that my mom would have to take off her flip-flops if she walked past my room with my door closed because I would wake up. When I got married, I remember having this conversation with you, which made it very tough in the very beginning. And you had advised me to buy the sleep buds, which I did buy, transformed my life, but I still do wake up. I mean, it's still not a consistent and deep sleep. I wake up in the middle of the night at least once or twice, and it takes me a while to wind down again and fall asleep. So my question is twofold. Will I ever get rid of the sleep buds, or do I continue using them? And why am I a light sleeper? Is that something that can be reversed or can be remedied?
It absolutely can be reversed. Now, I think one of the main reasons that you perceive yourself as a light sleeper.
Okay.
But I think one of the reasons is that you never really learnt how to fall asleep when you were small.
Okay.
I have had a number of teenagers and adults, and if I look back through their history, they actually never learnt how to fall asleep by themselves.
Okay.
Sleep in its purest form is a learnt behaviour. And sleep means to let go.
Okay.
And sleep means to feel safe and secure. So if you are not able to get into that deep sleep, one of the reasons is because your brain is still on, and you have gone into fight, fright and flight because you feel there is something almost like a saber-toothed tiger lurking.
Oh, wow.
And that goes right back to your childhood.
Okay.
So if we're really, really tired, we've had a horrendous day, we're absolutely exhausted, and we say, right, I'm going to go to bed because I'm so tired. And then you go to bed and you cannot sleep. And that's because largely due to the fact, yes, you are overtired, but that cortisol, that is just, going round and round in your head, that's actually keeping you in that fight, fright and flight. So we talk about the two systems in terms of our nervous system. So we have a parasympathetic and we have a sympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
And the sympathetic nervous system is where we should only be for a very small amount of time during our day. So we should spend 90% in our parasympathetic, which is rest and digest.
Okay.
So that if we need to go to the sympathetic, which is fight, fright and flight, then the body knows what to do. But because of modern day living, we are much more in that on. And so the same with you and your brain. When you go to bed at night, your brain is so on, your brain is so wired that we actually haven't provided the optimal environment for sleep. So that's one of the main reasons that we are not sleeping as well now.
And what does it mean to create the proper environment, and how do I actually learn this behavior? Like, what are some of the remedies, if you have top 3 or top 5 remedies?
So there are certain natural remedies that you can have. Now, one is that it's a neurotransmitter and it's called GABA.
Okay.
Now, GABA is a neurotransmitter where it calms our anxiety down.
Okay.
And that is really helpful to take you back to that state of relaxed state. If you...
Okay.
You've had a really, really stressful time. You've had deadlines that you have no choice but to meet these deadlines. And then at the end of it, you are so tired and wired that the cortisol and the adrenal glands are all in overdrive. And that's where something like GABA, this neurotransmitter, is a natural neurotransmitter, and that will just calm your brain down in preparation for sleeping. Now, this is not to be taken long term. This is simply to get you to that place of calm. And so that's quite helpful. Then there is something else, which is another, natural supplement.
Okay.
And that is HTP5. Now, HTP5, both of these things you can buy in the chemist.
Okay.
But HTP5 is an amino acid. And that, again, just boosts the serotonin. Well, it is serotonin. That's part of what it is. And so serotonin then is one of those really important building blocks for the other neurotransmitters, such as tryptophan, which then boost your melatonin.
Okay.
Now, again, HTP5 you do have to be mindful of. So if you were on an antidepressant, for example, you certainly wouldn't take that. You'd seek advice from your doctor.
Of course.
Because if you're taking something that already contains serotonin but something like GABA is a really good short-term solution, but never again in isolation. Magnesium is such a great supplement for sleeping.
Yeah.
And not only is it really, really good for sleeping, because it's known as the sleep mineral, again, it relaxes the central nervous system. But anyone who's out there who's, premenopausal or perimenopausal or it actually continues to build the brain. So those are your kind of supplements you'd be looking at. Ashwagandha, of course, that's really helpful for sleep.
Nice.
And then there's different kinds of teas, and they really do help. So your chamomile tea.
Yeah.
But again, none of these are going to work in isolation.
Right.
You have to look at your overall preparation for sleeping.
Which includes
things that are pertinent to you. So if you feel you have to be on your device, then you can come off it 30 minutes before.
Okay.
So the best would be 1 to 2 hours before. So 1 hour would be your ideal. Another thing would be if looking at the timings of your eating. So one of the factors that is going to ensure that you do sleep well is that your core body temperature has been allowed to drop before you're sleeping and throughout your sleeping. So if you have a heavy meal, say 1 hour before bedtime, that is without question going to cause you to sleep poorly and wake up. Now, the reason why the poor meal is going to do that is because in order for us to come out of stage 1 and into stage 2, our core body temperature has to drop,
of course,
by 0.5 of a degree. Now, if you've had a heavy meal 1 hour before bedtime, then you've just ramped up your core body temperature because your body's working really, really hard to digest your food.
Of course.
So it's about, having an early meal. If we're looking at the best time that we have something to eat, again, it's food content.
Yeah.
So if I was to have, say, a piece of steamed fish and some steamed vegetables, then 2 hours before bed, then that's not going to impact my sleep. But if I have, a big bowl of pasta with cheese, and then it's going to take, I won't digest that food probably till the early hours of the morning.
Oh, wow.
The early hours of the morning. It's about when we're eating and what we're eating in terms of looking at your perfect sleep environment. So whatever precedes it, being very mindful about our caffeine intake and our tea, because tea, of course, contains caffeine.
Caffeine, of course.
So we also need to recognize, people will say, doesn't make any difference to me. I can have coffee at 12 o'clock at night. Makes no difference. It does. And then from approximately 9 o'clock, what you would try and do is really expose yourself to as much natural light as humanly possible.
Okay.
So natural light being candles, if possible. But if not, at least have not the overhead lighting.
Yeah.
Because that is all supporting the flow of melatonin, which is really going to support your good sleep. There's some wonderful sleep aids now where they go under your sheets and they have a cooling impact. And some of them are so clever now that actually you can set them so that they're cool up to a certain point, following your natural physiology of your sleep. So working with our circadian rhythm, that they start to get a little bit warmer as the morning arrives. So we're starting to wake up. So we're not freezing cold when we're waking. So honestly, the devices now are really helpful.
That's actually fantastic and insightful. And I feel like I would invest in something like that because I find it absolutely difficult to just, after a long day of emails and work and then family commitments and then going back home and making sure everything is set, and just trying to work around my schedule with my husband's schedule. It's so overwhelming throughout the day. To wind down in that hour or two before I get to sleep is just difficult. I sometimes find it impossible, but as you said, there's nothing impossible. No. And if we start with the moment that we wake up, with every, action we take and behavior we do, then you would be able to, see positive results.
What you've got to do is recognize within you what you can manage. So start small. and build up. You might say, okay, one of the things I know that I can do, I can leave my phone out of my bedroom. I know I can do that.
Right.
And it might be at the weekend you can do it. You might say, I can't do it during the week because I can't. That's a start. We all have to start somewhere, and it's about what you can manage. But we also have to recognize that there isn't any magic bullet for any of this. It really takes time.
Yeah, I like that. There's a starting point for everything. My next question is about white noise. So using these sleep buds have helped me, play a certain white noise. In my case, it's the beach waves. How effective is white noise, and how is it actually useful? I have a friend who's a new mother, and because she used to sleep in the same room as her baby for a very long time, she now actually plays white noise. Even though she no longer sleeps in the same room, she still plays it because it helps her go to sleep. How effective is it?
White noise is one of the most positive sleep associations without any side effects at all.
Okay.
Which is very, very unusual. Generally, there's side effects to everything, but to white noise, there is not.
Okay.
So, and the sound of the beach, which is perfect, because evidentially, the sound of the beach is the best white noise for sleep.
Okay. Why is that?
Now, well, it's because if we think about our circadian rhythm, so it's all linked to the world rotating round day and night. And it's the same with the ocean. The tide goes out and the tide comes in. Now, not only is it about the tide going out and the tide coming in, but it's about patterns in the brain. The brain loves patterns. The brain is the most associative machine ever. It's a monster when it comes to associations. Interestingly, there's one of the leading neuroscientists in the world, Matthew Walker, and he does wonderful podcasts, and I mean, one of his books is Why We Sleep, and I really do implore everyone to read it because unfortunately it actually reads like a horror movie.
Oh.
Because when you read this book...
So we shouldn't read it before we sleep.
No.
Okay.
But when you read it, you honestly understand why we now do need to look about improving our sleep. Not to the point where it's creating anxiety with us, because obviously that isn't going to help either. But we need to start making changes, because we know that when the less we sleep, the shorter we're going to live.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
It's the ugly truth.
It is.
Honestly.
It is.
Yeah.
But Matthew Walker, interestingly, so he's now been doing lots and lots of work on Alzheimer's. And so what they are finding with all this work that he's doing, because of course Alzheimer's is so much more common now.
Right.
But what he's finding is when his patients sleep with the white noise, but the sound of the ocean, they are able to store and retrieve information so much more successfully than any other kind of white noise.
Oh, wow.
And again, if we think of our children who are learning so much, white noise is really helpful. Now, if we feel like, for example, I had a couple of children and the parents were really concerned because they were saying that the white noise, they now can't sleep without it. And, that means that when they go and do sleepovers and stuff, they can't bring a white noise machine with them.
Of course, yeah.
But actually, I said they can. And just to try it, and you find that you can.
I mean, why not? If the other kids are going to be able to sleep better as well. I mean, it's a win-win.
The circadian or circadian rhythm, whichever you wish to pronounce it. Tomatoes, tomatoes.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is so important. And just to give you an understanding of how important it is, in 2017, there were 3 research scientists, who were awarded the Nobel Prize for Medicine. And its impact on our health is absolutely huge. Okay. Now, again, to elaborate on the importance of it, is if we look at the countries where we have the daylight saving, when the clocks move forward, in the countries, thankfully they don't here in Dubai, but when the clocks move forward and we lose 1 hour's sleep, in all of these countries where we have 1 hour sleep less, so in the summer, there is an increase in strokes and heart attacks of up to 24%. Just for that 1 hour difference. Now,
there was an actual correlation
that night.
Oh, wow.
And what actually happens on the ground is the hospitals, they put more staff on in A&E in anticipation for this increase in strokes and heart attacks. Now, the same when the clocks go back and we gain 1 hour's sleep, there is a fall in strokes and heart attacks on that one night by up to 22%.
Wow.
Now, why this is so relevant to the circadian rhythm is because, so we have a group of cells that sits just behind our eyes, if you like. It's deep into the brain, but it monitors the light coming in. This is why light is so important. This is called, it's a very fancy name, but it's called the suprachiasmatic nuclei. So SCN. Yeah.
Nice.
It is. So SCN. So it's like your master clock.
Okay.
Now, this master clock, then, depending on that information that's coming in, it relays all that information, or it relays the information to the rest of the clocks in our body. And how many clocks do we have in our body?
I have no idea. How many do we have?
Guess how many? Approximately.
I'll say 3.
Do you know that is a number that is very common? That 37.
What?
37.
37 clocks?
Yeah. So that's why when the clocks shift forward externally, that information going into our brain to the SCN is incorrect. So all those clocks now, they are thrown out. So the clock in our heart, which means that the blood pumping around our system is thrown out. The liver, the central nervous system, all of it is thrown out. So that's why when we look at our screen, that's why it's so detrimental to our sleep.
Yeah.
Because there's a group of cells that monitor, it's in our eye socket, and that monitors the light that is coming in.
Right.
Now, if we're looking at the device, the light that comes from our device is a blue light. Now, in that socket that is relaying the information to the brain, to that part of the brain, the SCN,
right,
blue light can only mean one thing, which is the sky, and 2:00 in the afternoon.
Oh.
So if the brain has been told it's 2:00 in the afternoon from what we're looking at, and the reality is it's 1:00 in the morning, that melatonin is completely disrupted, and it lasts the entire night. It's not just at the beginning of the night.
Right.
So that's why our devices, from a research perspective, have such a negative impact on our sleep. And you can imagine for our children, whose brain is much more sensitive to light, their sleep is even more disrupted.